Shalom family, it's your man Elijah. Thank you for joining me at Unsectarian Wisdom, and as usual, I'm a wise, wealthy, rich, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. Let's go ahead and jump back in this Terra-Infinita today, family. Matter of fact, we're going back in time. We're going back to finish up the last two chapters. Well, the first two chapters, because we skipped. When we first jumped in, we skipped in favor of just giving the information on the individual planets. And but after we're done with this one too, family, we got another book to jump into. And this is just going to get deeper into the stories. I know it looks similar to this one, but they're different books. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into chapter 1. 9:15 a.m. marked the clock in this suffocating and sad gray room. My eyes barely opened, and they somehow tried to give me an overview of where I really was. I must admit that every day I find it more difficult to adapt to this world. My mind takes minutes to realize that I am back in the walled lands, where my ancestors have walked long ago. I found a rolled up newspaper on the door that said June 22nd. That's how they count the days here, each one faithful to their soul, pigeonholed grid, where it seems that nothing can get out of the script, that mundane script that they created for the forced partners of this abyss, dark and sinister, a humanity that seems to bleed day by day without realizing that it collides every day against the crude reality that they let long ago. All this becomes something immovable. Hold on, let me read that again. Nah, whatever. This cannot be called life. I thought to myself every time I visit the lands where my father was born. My grandparents, my ancestors, those who left their lives to see a free humanity. And I've found this. It hurts my heart to imagine the bones of my brothers who must still be buried here in these lands, who died believing and fighting for everything to be different. Curious way of living, I thought, while turning on and off a small lamp next to an old bed. Here, without a doubt, there is a strange way of creating a false need for objects. This humanity seems to be paying for the sin of its past having tried to be free. I understand that, although it is very unfair, and it is a thorn in the side of all of us who come from the other side, the free side behind the ice walls. Pay for a place. Hold on real quick, family, I apologize. Okay, I apologize. Okay, here we go. Pay for a place where they were born. This phrase went round and round in my head. That's why I knew well the faces of those adventurers who managed to find the other lands. The lands of the giants, or the lands where I was born so many miles away from here. But a very high price had to be paid. That's why I come back. That's why my father died, leaving his legacy. We never forget the new humanity that was born in these lands deprived of their freedom and their true history. Maybe it is time to start opening those walls of fear, as I like to call them, that terrify us for a past where a war was lost, but freedom was gained, that the dead have not been in vain or forgotten, as the custodians wanted. They buried a large part of human history and manipulated it. And worst of all is that they convinced them, and now many defend this history and the lands they inhabit. This world is a very difficult place to survive. In addition to a high toxicity in what you breathe, eat, drink, there are also enough dangers that make it an unfriendly place, and for those who manage to escape with little desire to return. But as I always say, in my heart, I have these lands so rooted. When I walk through these lands, I reconnect with my past, with my dear father, William Morris, who swore to defend and rescue this new humanity from the parasitic hands of the custodians. Also, the amount of wars that were lived throughout the years and are still being lived is really detestable. How they manipulate even in such a basic way as putting different colors and imaginary limits or beliefs of all kinds to divide. With that you can only generate that millions of people lose their lives, even many voluntarily thinking they do it in a just cause. The only just cause is freedom, and that freedom can only be achieved by tearing down the curtains around these lands. Lifting the veil comes at a high price, but it is always worth knowing the truth, even if this is the last thing I can write. How many innocent people have given their lives for this cause? Who does not want to know the true story of our past? In this book, I will try to bring clarity as much as possible on the subject of the known lands and the other worlds behind the ice walls. I will also try to leave detail of everything we know about the civilizations of each of these, also called planets, and a brief history of which we got to know, thanks to the book of Shikai, the giant human who gave my father the knowledge that nobody knows in this new humanity, due to the great existing manipulation and the strong conditioning that they exploit from childhood. The important thing is that only one person I have met who was really interested in listening to my story, even though I had not revealed my real name or where I had come from. We had been studying this new humanity for a long time. We would not trust this long investigation and information if we did not know what it will be delivered, if we did not know that it would be delivered with all the respect and in the way we want. Besides that it takes urgency, we are not here to scare anyone, nor give dates of cataclysms or resets or restarts, but we are aware and understand that the situation of recent years is increasingly delicate. We understand that this process can be accelerated, and we are aware of the causes and resulting effects. In case I did not introduce myself yet, my name is Helen Morris, daughter of the navigator William, and born in lands that surely you do not know, almost 8,000 kilometers behind the ice walls in the direction you know as south. Before I take you on the path of the Terra-Infinita and its history, you must understand that much of these texts will not go in line with what you have learned in this circle environment. I will also explain where this term comes from. Much of the history told here is possible for you to keep to yourself, and that this book can open up this cause. Much of the story still lives in you because you are also part of it in some way, only that you have been put to sleep, completely anesthetized to such an extent that living this life seems normal, a life that one seems to be based merely on robotic, repetitive actions. Very few are based on love and empathy. The division is every day easier and for any reason, and the big media take advantage of any of these weaknesses that have been exploiting for a long time. It is also important that you can contrast this information. You should not believe anything about us, but you should question everything, what you have learned so far, and what they will want to make you learn by force. Always try to surround yourself with people who not only deliver a message of empathy and love, but who really carry it forward and do not generate any division. So do not be surprised if any of this sounds familiar. Embrace the ideas that you like the most. Embrace them tightly and always trust what you feel, what comes from your heart. Your mind will try to manipulate and confuse you. My father left these lands in times of war, and when I returned, I found it almost in the same situation. As you will see, the security that one seeks in times of war is the same that generates them. In other words, there is no such security from any country, or government, or political party, or any leader of any kind. It is only you humans against those who pull the strings from the dark. Today, called custodians, the watchers, caretakers, the corrupt brotherhood, the tree protectors, kujas, the energy absorbers, and I think I have heard many other terms, but we will stick with the first of them. Although I usually call them the parasitic race, it fits them perfectly. They are here since almost the beginning of humanity. And whether we like it or not, they manage and have control of these lands today. Can anything be done against this? The answer is simple, yes. But for that, we have to go into many points and find many of their weaknesses as well as strengths. Knowing the enemy is the best way to get. Knowing the enemy is the best way to get to break free from their control and or end up defeating them. Alright, that's the end of chapter 1. I think that was the longest chapter I've read in this book, family. Alright, now we're going to finish off with chapter 2, the Great Dome. Before going into each of the worlds, it is necessary... Oh, I'll go ahead and show you. Chapter 2. Before going into each of the worlds, it is necessary to make a caveat and clarify what the Great Dome means and what we mean when we mention it. The Great Dome, or also called the end of the known, is that which covers and encloses in some way all the other known worlds. Very few were able to see this end and even touch it. Can it really be touched? Moreover, it is said that some experiments were made to be able to cross it, but it was not possible. It is the terror of several colonizing civilizations that do not sleep peacefully, since any race from outside could take away from them from one day to the other the power that they maintain and that hierarchical pyramid that they themselves built during history. Another world that generates terror for them is the celestial lands, but we will have time to detail this mysterious place that has a great relationship with the human being. In this great dome, there are 178 worlds, or circle environments, which in turn may have one or several domes that also enclose them with their different climates and civilizations. Penetrating these domes of each circle is not an easy task. As time went by, the technique was perfected, and now there is a lot of technology to carry it out. But this was developed exclusively by colonizing races. Many other races explored surrounding these worlds, or simply the independent lands, lacking domes. These domes are almost impossible to cross via air, and almost always another way is sought by land. But the most common is that it can be done through water, which is where there are more easily found the way to open passage that can connect the inner outer worlds, almost like two membranes in any cell, functioning as a barrier that can allow at a certain time the passage. When you have greater control to be able to penetrate some specific domes, it can be done via air without much inconvenience, although it can be quite dangerous for reasons that we will see later. Much later, many portals were found in several circle environment connecting every Much later, many portals were found in several circle environment connecting even several of the worlds. The manipulation of these portals was so great that many problems were caused and some became unstable, making some beings have disappeared without knowing where they really went, or if this caused that their matter has disintegrated. Today, it is common to find beings in full development of portals that can connect certain areas within the Great Dome without ever having been able to penetrate it. When we speak of the 178 worlds, we are not referring to the independent lands that exist between the worlds. These are lands that exist and were used by various races when they could go outside. In fact, it is said that these lands exist to avoid long distances that connect the worlds. It is fervently believed that the worlds were made to investigate them, and that all of us, in one way or another, are going to go outside to look for our freedom, to know other races, and to be able to enter someday in what can be found in the celestial lands, as well as behind the Great Dome. Everlasting life. All right, family. That's the end of that. What comes to mind too? Another thing. The movie Battleship with Rihanna, the one that came out maybe was that maybe like 5 years now, 6, 7, and now I'm thinking about it how the aliens in the movie Battleship, you know, we're thinking aliens from space, but their technology was water based. So that's pretty interesting now. And matter of fact, remember they put up a shield that covered all the Hawaiian Islands, right? So that's another interesting thing. Um, Once again, Stargate, as he's talking about the portals that connect lands together, and they're talking about it dissipating, and they're wondering if people disintegrated. So that's another Stargate SG-1 reference right there. Um, but anyway, that's some interesting information. I mean, now I'm kind of thinking I should have read that from day one, from the beginning. But I was so excited about reading about the lands, family. But anyway, I'm done right there, family. I'll talk to you guys later. And as usual, before I go, I'm a wise, wealthy, rich, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. Catch you later, family. Be blessed. Shalom. And this is taking a minute because that stop record button is always